Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is YOMA Daf Tes. We're 3 lines from the bottom of Ches Amud Beis. Tanan Hossam, we learned in a Mishnah in Maseches Demai. We know generally, if a person purchases peiros or tvua from an Am Ha'aretz, who's unreliable when it comes to tending to the Truma Maser obligations of his produce, Chachamim consider that to be Demai, which is really a joint word. Demai, what is this? We're unsure as to whether it is still Tevel, whether the Truma and Maser were not separated by the Am Ha'aretz, or perhaps he did take care of it. Now, we're going to see it soon. It's really a chumrah to have this concern, because most Am Ha'aretz would properly address the Truma Maser obligations. But since it was a common occurrence, a very common occurrence, where the Am Ha'aretz would neglect his obligation, therefore the Chachamim made a gzeira, a takana. If one buys things from an Am Ha'aretz, an unlearned fellow who is unreliable when it comes to these halachas, he must tend to this tvua in some way. Now we're going to learn in the Gemara that not all Trumas Umasras were neglected by the Am Ha'aretz. In fact, Truma Gedola, they were aware of that and of its significance and severity, and they did separate Truma Gedola. So that's off the list. But Maser Rishon, Maser Ani, Maser Sheni, Trumas Maser, the Am Ha'aretz would neglect, and therefore it is obligatory upon a person who purchases produce, tvua, peiros from Am Ha'aretz, to tend to these obligations. So the way it's done is as follows. Truma Gedola you don't have to take care of. That we assume that Am Ha'aretz did do. But Maser Rishon, which is a tenth, which goes to the Levi, and Maser Ani, another tenth, which goes to the poor man, you have to separate that. Although you don't have to actually give it to them, because we know Hamoitzi Mechaveri, Olavaraya. One has to substantiate his claim in order to collect on it. You can't force me to give it to you. This is the owner speaking to the Levi or to the Ani. You have to prove that I'm chayiv to give this to you. So I have to separate from my bunch, because otherwise it's tevel, but I don't have to actually give it to you, because it's only a monetary claim that you have on me. And you have to prove that claim. However, Trumas Maser, the tenth of that Maser Rishon, must be separated and given to the Kohen. And Maser Sheni as well, we separate it and we go ahead and we mechalel it on money, and of course we take it up to Yerushalayim, or the peiros themselves we take up to Yerushalayim. So that was a general rule of thumb, that the person who purchases things from Ha'aretz has to actually give away Trumas Maser and tend to Maser Sheni properly. Says the Mishnah, we have some exceptions to this rule. Hanach Toimen, those bakers who purchased their supply from the Am Ha'aretz, Lo yichivu oisan chachamim lahafresh. Chachamim exempted them from this chi of being mafresh. You don't have to follow the general rule. Ella trumas maser v'chala. The only thing they have to take care of is trumas maser and chala. Let's see Rashi on the first wide line. Hanach toimen haloikchen tvua me'am ha'aretz lim kar pasel shuk. These fellows purchased tvua from the Am Ha'aretz to produce bread. Lo yichivu alein lahalois maser sheni shel ma'al Yerushalayim. Chacham did not obligate them to take the maser sheni and bring it to Yerushalayim. Ella trumas maser. The only thing they do have to separate is trumas maser, which is 100th, a tenth of a tenth. Shu echad mimeya. V'chala, that as well. Yitein lekoyin. Of course, chala. There's no reason to exempt them. That's something which they're chayiv as soon as they make that dough. So chala they're chayiv and trumas maser. Aval shar kol adam. But otherwise, ordinarily, a person does have a chayiv to do maser sheni as well. Hitilu olav lahalois maser sheni shel ma'al Yerushalayim. And this, from this, the nachtam is potter. I'm going to see soon in the Gemara the reason for that. Umaser Rishon, Maser Sheni, Maser Ani, Mafrishin, Oisan, Veinoisan. When it comes to Maser Rishon, Maser Ani, everybody will have to separate, but it's not chayv to actually give it to the Levi or the Ani, as we explained earlier. So there was a kula applied to the nachtam. He's potter from Maser Sheni. Ube nachtam chaver askinan. Speaking about a nachtam who's a reliable fellow, who wants to tend to his obligations properly. But since he's engaged in selling off his produce on a regular basis, and the Gemara is going to say he doesn't really have a large profit margin. Hikilu olav she'enat tzorach lahafresh olav maser sheni shel mai lahales Yerushalayim aliftes. Chachamim exempted him from the chiyuv of separating maser sheni bring it up to Yerushalayim or pay their on money, there's no need for him to take care of Maser Sheni on the supply that he received from the Amoritz. Says the Gemara, let's go down and listen and analyze this halacha. Bishloima, says the Gemara, Truma Gedoyla, we understand why he's pata from Truma Gedoyla, because everybody is pata from Truma Gedoyla when it comes to something purchased from Amoritz. This is Sanya. The Fisha Shalach B'chol Gvul Yisrael. This is speaking about Yochanan Kohen Gadol, who sent around. He investigated throughout the cities of Israel. He wanted to see whether or not they're tending to their Truma Master obligations. And what did he find? He saw that everybody was aware of the Chi of Truma Gedolah, even Amoritz would take it seriously, and they would be mafresh Truma Gedolah. If that's the case, there's never concern of Truma Gedolah when it comes to something purchased from the Amoritz. So that is Pat. Maser Rishon, Maser Ani Nami. There as well. He doesn't have to actually give the Maser Rishon or Ani to the Levi or the Ani. Although he has to separate, he doesn't have to actually give it to them. Why? If you want to claim, if you want to extract, you have to prove yourself, to prove your position. Here, the Ani can't prove that he's entitled to the Maser Ani. He can't prove that this Tvua had not been taken care of properly by the Amoritz. So the purchaser, the customer of this Tvua has to separate the Maser Ani, separate the Maser Rishon, because otherwise it's Tevel. But once he separates it, he can eat it himself, because Maser Rishon, Maser Ani can be eaten even by Yisrael. So you understand why this Nachtaim doesn't have to separate from a Gedolah. It's never an issue. Maser Rishon, Maser Ani, he separates it, but holds on to it. That leaves us with Maser Sheni. Why is he parted from that? Ela Maser Sheni, Nifrashu. Let them separate. V'nisku, v'neichlu, b'Yushalayim, and take it up and eat it in Yerushalayim. There's no loss. Why did the Chacham exempt them from Maser Sheni? Says Rashi up on top. We understand why Truma Gedolah is never an issue. He was the one who established the whole practice of Demai, and he sent around to see what's going on. He found that Truma Gedolah was being taken seriously. And when it comes to Maser Rishon, Maser Ani, although you separate it, but you don't have to actually give it to the Ani or the Levi. Once you've separated the Maser Rishon, and you've transformed the Tvua from Tevel to Chulin, now the only thing left, the only thing remaining is the question of whether you give this to the Levi, give it to the Ani. You don't have to, because now it's only a momentous claim. It's a Safek Gezel. So they have to prove their position. You can't be mechayiv him to give it over. Chutz mitrumas maser shebetoich Maser Rishon, except for the 10th of the Maser Rishon, which is trumas maser, given from the Maser Rishon to the kohen, oisa yitin the kohen, that has to be given to the kohen. Sheish isur v'oven misa v'chalasa. One may not eat trumas maser if he's in Yisrael, so he has to give it over. Taisus asks, why can't they just sell it to the kohen? He says, it wasn't much to gain from that small amount of tvua. Therefore, Chachamim required him to actually give it to the kohen. It's like, it's his gain, and you don't really have much to lose from it. So it's zeh of zelei chaser. They required it to be given over to the kohen. But when it comes to the rest of the Maser Rishon or the Maser Ani, you don't have to give it over. V'levi v'ani YOMA haviu raya shalei yisra Amoritz shalokach t'mimena. Prove your point. Prove that the Amoritz never took care of Maser Rishon or Maser Ani, and I'll give it to you. Otherwise, I can hold on to it. What about Maser Sheni, says the Gemara? Nifrashu, v'nisku. Why don't the Nachtaimim separate the Maser Sheni and bring it up to Yerushalayim? Shari yesh b'isur. If you eat it outside Yerushalayim, you're not allowed to. Lo yisucha lecha b'sharecha. Yafrishu k'dei l'saken tivlei. So they should separate to be masaken the tevel and make it into chulin. Hoya v'loi pas t'vei, since there's nothing to lose. The inunav shayu hadar ka'achlei b'Yerushalayim. They themselves can eat it in Yerushalayim. Maser Sheni is eaten by Yisrael. So why indeed would the Nachtaimim exempt it from Maser Sheni? Says the Gemara on the 5th line from the top. Amar Ula, I'll tell you all. Metoich sheparhedrin halalu chayvtin oisam kol yudbeis chodesh. We had this yesterday. The parhedrin with these ministers, these inspectors, the FDA inspectors will come around, And every 12 months, when the new inspector, the new minister was appointed, they would come around and harass the bakers. These ministers would come around, harass the bakers every 12 months. And tell them, sell cheap, sell cheap. They wouldn't allow them to make much on their bread. Every minister, when he was appointed, he wanted to gain a name as the one that chopped down the food prices. So he'd go around to the bakers and harass them. Sell for cheap, sell for cheap. Therefore, since they had such a narrow profit margin, Chacham did not burden them and potter them from Maser Shem. Says Rashi off to the right, Rashi has a kasha. What do you mean? You can't just exempt them from chiyuvim. If there's a chashash that this tvu is tevel, then just because they're not earning much money, that's not a reason. The answer is because really, roiv amia uretz will ma'asrnei. So now Torah can follow the Rav and assume that this tvu was properly tended to by the Amoritz. But since it was something pretty common to find that the Amoritz would not do the Truma Maser, Chachamim established a Gzeira of Demai. But in a situation of necessity, such as the Nachtoimen, who barely made any profit on their sale, Chachamim suspended the Chiyuv of a Mafresh Maser Shem. So how does the Gemara come in? Because we had Lishkas Parhedron yesterday, speaking about the Pekidei HaMelech. Says the Gemara, my Parhedron, what exactly are these Parhedron? Pursi. Rashi says, Pekidei HaMelech, the inspectors, the ministers who would harass the bakers. Omar Rabba Babrachana. Omar Rabbi Yehuda. We discussed yesterday that the Gehanim Gedolim throughout the second Beis HaMikdash were not really worthy of their position. They were actually pretty corrupt, and they wouldn't really make it through the year. Generally, they would die out. They would, perhaps in the Kaddish HaKadoshim, they weren't worthy of going in there. And every year, there was a new Kohen Gadol on the scene. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana Rabbi Yehuda. My dichsiv, how do you explain the pasuk? Yiras Hashem Toisef Yamim Ushnois Rishon Tiktzana. The pasuk in Mishlei says, Yiras Hashem adds life. It prolongs a person's life. Ushnois Rishon Tiktzana, the days, the years of Rishon shorten. Marsha says an unbelievable thing. He says Yiras Shemaim can actually add years to a person's life. He says even if a person had a predetermined amount of years that he's meant to live through his mazel, that was the time set for him. But if he has Yirah Shamayim, Hashem can add years to his life. In fact, there's a Gemara in Chagiga, whole story with Miriam Megadlo Nashaya, with the Malach Duma, who's in charge of taking out the neshamas, of bringing the neshamas from this world. And he said, it was a mistake, I killed him by mistake. And then the question was, what are we going to do with the extra years? And he said, Duma said, no problem. I take those extra years and I grant it to somebody who is mevater. I give it to a tzurban rabban who's loimukim amile. A person gives in easily. He doesn't entrench himself in his position. He's easygoing. He's mevater, and he is zoicha that Hashem gives him extra years. Unbelievable. So that's the pasuk here. Yiras Hashem toisef yamim ushnois Hashem tiktzarna. And the Gemara explains like this. What's it referring to? Yiras Hashem toisef yamim ze migdash rishon. It's referring to the days of the Migdash Rishon, of the first Beis HaMikdash, where the Kohanim were fellows of high stature, befitting their position. She'amad arba meyos v'eser shanim, the Beis HaMikdash Rishon stood for 410 years. And all throughout the 410 years, there were no more than 18 Kohanim Gedolim. So each one had a long tenure. They were tzaddikim and worthy of that title. Taisus actually has a girsa that was only 8 kohanim, and he actually brings another pshat that it was really 18, but because 18 is not really 18, he brings a pasuk that was really 9. But since each kohen gadol had a sgan, had a vice president, so that if something happens to kohen gadol, the sgan will take over. Now, although it's unlikely that all these Ganim served, that something went wrong all the time, but at the most, it would have been 18 Kohanim Gedolim. 9 plus there's Ganim, so you have 18. So that's the most. Bayis Rishon featured at the most 18 Kohanim Gedolim. However, Ushnois Rishon Tiktsarna, the years of Rishon get shortened. Ze Migdash Sheni, referring to the second Beis Hamikdash, She'ama Dald Meis Vesrim Shana, which stood 420 years. And how many Kohanim Gedolim served there? V'shimshu bo yoser mishleish meyos Kohanim. More than 300 Kohanim Gedolim. They were Rishayim. They bought their positions with money, and they didn't really make it through the year. So 300 in total. Now deduct. Say mehem memshan. Deduct 40 years. Sheshimesh Shimon HaTzadik, throughout which Shimon HaTzadik served. So deduct 40 from the 420 total. Deduct another 80. Ushmoinem Sheshimesh Yochanan Kohen Gadol. 80 for him. Eser, deduct another 10 years. Sheshimesh Yishmael Ben Pavi. V'Amrigon, some say deduct another 11 years. Yudalav Sheshimesh Rabbi Elazar Ben Charson. So you're left with less than 300 years. And let's now calculate. Mikan ve'elach. Now let's sit down and figure out. Say v'chashev. If you sit down and calculate, so you have around roughly 280 years for roughly 300 Kohanim Gedolim. Kol echad ve'echad lo yoytzi shnasa. The conclusion is that the Kohen Gadol didn't really survive his year. So every year there was another Kohen Gadol on the scene. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Tersa. Interesting name. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Tersa. It's actually a beautiful medrash. The Tosfos Yeshanim brings this in the Psikta Rabasi. He says that Rabbi Yehuda was nisgayer al yidei para. A para made him a ger. What was the story? There was a yid who sold an ox to a guy, and come Shabbos, the ox refused to do work, as he was accustomed to resting when he was in the possession of the Yisrael, but the guy needed to work with him on Shabbos, and he refused to budge. So he went back to the owner, the seller. He says, "What's going on? He's on strike." So the Yisrael went over to him and whispered into his ear. He says, "Listen, in the past you were lucky. You were owned by me, a Yisrael, and you were zoicha to keep Shabbos. But now, unfortunately, I lost you, and you're in the possession of a guy. Go ahead, you can work on Shabbos." And he heeded the instructions. He got up to work. The guy was pretty impressed by this trick. He says, what did you whisper into the animal's ear that got him going? So he told him, "I'll tell you the truth. We have halacha. An animal is meant to rest on Shabbos." I explained to him, it's only when you're owned by a Jew, but now you're free to work on Shabbos. The guy was so impressed. He says, an ox has that awareness of spirituality, of Shabbos, of Hashem. He couldn't get over it. He says, "Me, I'm a person. I'm a person. I'm not an animal, and I certainly should have the awareness, should have the appreciation of spirituality, of Hashem, of Torah, mitzvahs," and he was in this Gayer. Rabbi Yehuda ben Tersa, the son of an ox, because the ox made him a ger. Like you say, a ger is Yisrael ben Avram. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Tersa, we find many times he's quoted in the Gemara and the Medrash. So he was a chashuv person. And he explained as follows. Let's go on to explain what happened with Mishkan Shiloi, with Bayis Rishon, Bayis Sheni. Why were they destroyed? Why was Mishkan Shiloi destroyed? Because there were two misdeeds present there. Gilui Aroyos ubizoyin kachin. How's that? Gilui Aroyos. Tichsiv ve'eli zokin moed. Eli was the father of Chafni and Pinchas, very old. V'shaman, he heard the bad news. Eis kol asher yasun bon, of everything that his sons, all the misdeeds that his sons would do. L'kol Yisrael. Ve'eis asher yishkivun es hanoshim. They would actually do znus with the women. Hatzoiveis pesach ha'il moed, who would come to the ha'il moed. Now, although it's not meant to be taken literally, whoever takes it literally that these sons of Eli actually sinned with znus, it's really a grave mistake. It was something related to znus, but not actually znus. Because they delayed being makriv, the birds for the noshim. Torah regards them as though they were mizana with these noshim. What's the connection? Says Rashi on top. Women would bring birds at the end of their Yimei Leida to go through the process of tahara, and generally we learned this in Shkolm. There's a chazaka that the Bezdin of Gehenna would not get up at the end of the day without having tended to the birds properly. Make sure that all the birds were brought on the Mizbeach. But the Bnei Eli, they were haughty. They were diddle-daddling. They just took their time. And they didn't really tend to their obligations seriously. And the women could no longer rely on the Chazaka. Chazaka was outdated. These people don't follow Chazaka. We can never be sure that they took care of our korbanos. They would wait around another day. And this would delay their homecoming back to their husbands, and prevent them from spending time with their husbands. And this is considered like znus, although it wasn't a direct avera, but the fact that they separated the husband from wife, that resembles the concept of znus. So they were guilty of something which resembled gili arayis. Continues the Gemara in the second line. Bizoyin kachim. Where do we find that they were mevazet? They degraded the korbanos tichsiv. Gam beterem yaktiron sachel. Even before the chaylev portion of the korban was brought in the mizbeach, which enables the korban to be eaten by the kohen. Let's remember, the kohen, it's not his animal. Hashem grants him part of the korban, mishulchan gavoy, from Hashem's table, after the korban was ready, hukrav in the mizbeach. But they were in a rush. They viewed the korbanos as though it's their own personal meat supply. Gam beterem yaktiron sachel. Even before the chaylev was burnt on the mizbeach, ubon nar kohen, the servant of the kohen, would come along, va'amar li'ish hazevech, and tell the owner of the korban, Tna basa litzlis the kohen, let me have some meat, so I can roast it for the kohen. He's not going to wait to take cooked meat. I need raw meat. And the person will respond, take it easy. Today we're going to burn the chaylev. Wait. And then you'll take to your heart's desire. What's the rush? And he responds, you'll give it now. Otherwise, I'll take it with force. And this sin was very grave in the eyes of Hashem. They degraded the mincha of Hashem. They treated it as their own personal supply, which is just the opposite of what it's meant to be. It's a korban for Hashem, which is then granted as a schus for the kohen to partake in. But it's not their own private property. It's not their own private supply. So this was a bizayin kachim, which the Bnei Eli engaged in, and on account of both of these averis, gil arayis and bizayin kachim, Mishkan Shilai was destroyed. Continues the Gemara. What about Mikdash Rishon? We learned earlier that Hanan during Mikdash Rishon were tzaddikim. So what went wrong? Why was it destroyed? Mikdash Rishon b'pnei ma'chorev. Says the Gemara, b'pnei gimel devarim shayu, on account of 3 averis that Yisrael were involved in during the time by Rishon. The 3 most chomer averis: avodah zarah, v'gili aroyis, v'shvichus damim. Where do we find this? Avodah zarah d'chsiv ki katzar hamatzah mistareya. This is referring specifically to the idol that Menashe brought into the Heichal. And the pasuk says the matzah, the sheet, the bed, is too small to accommodate both these competing, so to speak, these competing forces. The avodah zarah, which competes with Hashem. My katzar hamatzah, the matzah is too short, it's too narrow, mistareya, from accommodating. What does that mean? Mistareya means Rabbi Yehuda katzar matzah zeh, this matzah is too narrow, it's too small. Mistarer olav shnei reim ke'echad. Shnei reim are 2 friends. It's too small to have 2 friends lie on it together. So this is referring to the avodah zarah, which competed, so to speak, with Hashem's reign. V'hamaseicha tzora kiskanes. Hamaseicha is the metallic form. Tzora here is going to be nidrash, like a competing wife. One has 2 wives. One is called a tzora. Kiskanes, when they're together. Omar b'shmor rachmeni kimoti Rabbi Yonasan haikra. Bachi, when Rabbi Yonasan came to this pasuk, he began crying. Omar, he said, how could you attribute this type of description to this scene of the Zorah competing, so to speak, with Hashem? I mean, the Zorah is a competition to Hashem. Man dechsibe, Hashem. Where the pasuk describes him as follows: Koines kaned mi'ayam. He gathers together in a container the waters in the sea. So for Hashem, everything is so insignificant. Nasisly, masechet tzara. This little idol over here becomes a tzara, competing force to Hashem. So he began crying, meaning it's so not befitting, it's so not covered Hashem. Hashem is way above that. And in reality, it didn't really affect Hashem. It means to say that from our perspective, we presented this terrible situation to Hashem. We engaged in attributing power to competing forces to Avodah Zarah. So we find Avodah Zarah, which was present by Fri Jun. What about Gilui Arayos? Tichsiv, Vayomer Hashem, Yan ki govu bnei Tzion, due to the fact that the daughters of Tzion walked haughtily, v'teilachno into his gorin. They walked upright, umesakris inayim, holich v'tofev teilachno, ubraglein techasno ta'akasno. The Gemara will explain the entire passage. The fact that they were govu bnei Tzion, they acted with haughtiness and presented themselves inappropriately to attract inappropriate attention. Yan ki govu bnei Tzion, what does that mean? Shoyu mahalchis, aruka b'tzat tzara. A tall woman would walk alongside a short woman to attract extra attention. But teilachnu into his garden. That means shoyu mahalchis become eskufa. They would walk with their necks upright and erect. Umesakris einayim means the havumalyan kuchla einayim. They'd fill their eyes with eye paint. They were overly dressed to attract attention. Holich v'tafayf teilachnu. What does that mean? Shoyu mahalchis ekev b'tzad gulo. They would walk small baby steps. They would take their time walking through the streets. Ekev, the heel b'tzad gudol, alongside the large toe, so they take just small baby steps. Ubrag leyen ta'akasna, and with their regel they would cause kas and yitzhar. What does that mean? Or Yitzchak sheimeviyos moyer v'afarsim. They would bring these fragrances, these perfumes, umanichas b'naleim, and place it in their shoes. It's a Bachur Yisrael, when they would arrive to Bachur Yisrael, boyates, they would give a kick, matizas alain, and squirt the perfume on them, umachnisam ban yitzahara. This would generate in them a yitzahara, powerful yitzahara, ke'eres, big coast, like the venom in a angry snake, would have such a potent, immediate, detrimental effect on the Bachur Yisrael. So you see that they would engage in these inappropriate behaviors, which led to Gilui Arayos. And finally, shvichus dam. How do we find that? Dichsiv v'gam dam naki shafach Menashe harbe me'od. Menashe killed many. Ad asher moilei es Yerushalayim pelepei, filled Yerushalayim with dam. So on account of these three averas, the Beis Hamikdash Harishon was destroyed. Aval Mikdash Sheni, shoy oiskin v'Torah u'b'mitzvos u'gemilas chasadim. But Mikdash Sheni, where they were not involved in these three cardinal sins, they were oisik in good things: Torah, mitzvos, chesed. Why was Mikdash Sheni destroyed? Now the Maharal says that those three averos chamuris correspond to three different aspects within a person. Avodah Zarah is connected to the seichel of a person, belief system of a person. Gilui Arayos to the guf of a person. Shvichas dam is connected to nefesh, taking a person's life. And in Mikdash Sheni we find that they went in the other direction. They had everything going for them. They were involved in Torah, which is engagement of the mind, of the seichel, which is the antidote to Avodah Zarah. They were oisek mitzvahs with their guf, which undoes the effect of Gilui Arayos. They were protected from Gilui Arayos. And finally, gemilas chasadim, which involves a person's heart, his nefesh, and that undid, that was the antidote to shvichas dam. So they were free from all those three things. They were involved in good things. So why was the Beis Hamikdash destroyed? Says, although you're right, they were not involved in these averos chamuris, but there was something else very lacking in their premise, in their hearts. There was a lack of avos Yisrael. There was baseless hatred. And Rashi in Shabbos learns, china means, what do you mean china? Nobody hates somebody for nothing. China means it wasn't halachically permitted to hate that person, as opposed to hating a Russia, which sometimes is mutter. Sinas china means there was no justification, halachic justification for that sin. And as the Maharal says, the Beis Hamikdash is held together. Its fabric is held together by the Achdus Yisrael. And when there's a period, the Sinas Chinam, the Beis Hamikdash falls apart. So that's why it was destroyed. What does this teach us? Sinas chinam is equated to the three averes chamuris: avodah zarah, gilui arayos, shvichas dam. Because the Beis Hamikdash Rishon was destroyed on account of those averes. Beis Hamikdash Sheni didn't have those averes, but nevertheless was destroyed because of sinas chinam. Continues the Gemara. Rishayim hayu. Actually, during the Beis Hamikdash Rishon, there were Rishayim, as we explained. Ela shetolu b'tchenim Hashem. They had bitachon, false bitachon Hashem. Don't worry, nothing's going to happen to us. Asan Mikdash Rishon. This is in reference to Mikdash Rishon. Dechsiv Roshei b'sheichad yishpoitu. The heads would be paid off, would be bribed to do their mishpat. V'kayanei b'mechir yoru. The Gehanim would be paid off to issue their verdicts. Unavi eha b'kesav yiksaymu. The Nevi'im would spread nevuah, would be paid off to spread nevuah. Hashem yishanu leima. They would rely on Hashem and say, "No, halay Hashem kirbeinu. We have the Beis Hamikdash, which is Hashem's dwelling place. Hashem is here. Lo tavay aleinu ra. No ra will befall us." But in reality, it didn't work because they were involved in three averes chamuros. Lefichach hevi aleina kadosh baruch hu gimel gzeros. That's why Hashem brought upon them three decrees kneged gimel averes biyadam, corresponding to three averes. Shenemar, we find the pasuk three descriptions of churban. L'chein beglalchem, because of you, Tzion tzadat ticharish. Tzion will be plowed like a field. V'shleim and tia, V'shleim will be a heap of ruins. V'rabayis l'bamis yor, Habayis will be mounds like of a forest. It will be totally destroyed. So that explains what happened in Bayis Rishon. But in Bayis Sheni, the reason was sinas chinam, which apparently was not there during Bayis Rishon. Mikdash Rishon le'hava b'sinas chinam. Is that so? That Mikdash Rishon there was no sinas chinam. B'ksiv. Pasuk says, Megurei el cheref hayu es ami lochein sfoik el yarich. What does this mean? V'amar b'lazar elu b'nei adam. It's referring to people that would spend time with each other. Outwardly, they were close friends. Eat and drink with each other. But behind their backs, they would spread lashon hara. They were jealous and full of hatred inside. V'doikrin ze'esed. They would poke each other. B'chorvesh v'lashonim. With their sharp tongues like swords. So we see that even during Bayis Rishon, there was sinas chinam. Now the Chavetz Chaim, in the Hakdama, says an interesting chiddush. Although the Gemara speaks about sinas chinam being the catalyst for the churban Bayis Sheni, but says the Chavetz Chaim, it wasn't the sinas chinam per se. Rather, it was the expression of sinas chinam. It resulted in lashon hara being spoken, and that aver was very grave. He brings a Gemara in Erechim, which indeed equates lashon hara to gil arayos, shvichas damim, avodah zarah. And he says apparently when our Gemara says sinas chinam is shakel to those three grave averes, it's also referring to lashon hara. He says sinas chinam on its own, just having that ill feeling, he says it's a chiddush. He says it would not have destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. It was only because that sinas chinam, that hatred, came out and generated lashon hara. And brings a raya from this Gemara here. We see that the Gemara is proving there was sinas chinam during Bayis Rishon as well because they spoke evil. There was lashon hara spoken. We see from here that it's lashon hara which carries that potent, destructive power. In any case, we have this kasha. How can you say during Bayis Rishon there was no sinas chinam? We see clearly, even during Bayis Rishon, there was the same thing. There was lashon hara, sinas chinam. Hahi ben Nesiya Yisrael Havoy. That pasuk was referring to the leaders in Yisrael, the politicians. They were engaged in lashon hara, but it didn't really trickle down to the common folk. The chsiv zoak v'hil ben adam. This is the beginning of that pasuk. Yell and scream on account of the misfortune that befell Klal Yisrael on account of the sinas chinam. Ki hi oisa ba'ami. But we learn that this only applies to the Nesiya Yisrael who engaged in lashon hara. V'tanya v'zoak v'hil ben adam. Yochel akol, perhaps this applies to all. Tamaloyma ki hi b'chol Nesiya Yisrael. This only applied to Nesiya Yisrael. So in conclusion, Mishkan Shilai was destroyed because of the Gilui Arayos aspect that was practiced by the Bnei Eli. They delayed the Noshim. they prevented them from going back home and spending time with their husbands. We had the Bizayin Kachin, they would take the meat prior to Aktorah. Migdash Rishon was destroyed because of the Gimel Averes Chamurais, and Migdash Sheni due to Sinas Chilem and Lashon Hara. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Eliezer Damet Havai, they both said like this. Rishonim shenezgal avayim. We have a kasha. Why is it that Bais Rishon had a very short golus, and they were told, they knew beforehand it's going to take 70 years, and then you'll be back in Yerushalayim. Whereas Bais Sheni was destroyed, and we have no case, we have no inkling, we have no clue as to how long this golus will be. Rishonim shenezgal avayim. The reason is because the early ones, their oven was nizgal, was revealed unknown. We know why it happened, and it was something that they were aware of. Nizgala Kitzam, that's why their Kates was Nizgala. They were told it's going to be 70 years. It had a very defined limit. Achreinim Shalom Nizgala Avainim, however, the later ones, whose oven was not Nizgala, it was primarily because of Sinas Chinam, Lashon Hara, which is not something so revealed and evident. When Nizgala Kitzam, their Kates was not Nizgala, and Golas carries on without any end in sight. B'karav Yameinu will have the Gula, but it wasn't foretold and was very long. What's the connection between the two things? Nizgala Avoinam, Nizgala Kitzam, what's the connection? Says the Mashgiach from Mir, Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz. When one is aware of his aver, of his wrongdoing, he knows Gilei Rois, Shvichas, it's pretty clear. It's easier to come to tshuva. So it was easier for them to do tshuva, and there was zeicha to come back very quickly. As opposed to Bais Sheni, which involved more hidden misdeeds, things which are connected to one's heart, sinas chidam, more difficult to discern and identify, and more difficult for a person to realize and be aware and do tshuva. So the tshuva on sinas chidam is much more difficult and longer and harder in coming. And that's why we're still experiencing Galus today. Maral learns, difference is whether the Avera is external, in which case it's not so serious, or where it's internal, in which case it touches the core of the person. Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arois, Shvichas Damim, as difficult, as severe as they are, but they're external, they're deeds, they're masim. And the subsequent consequence was not so severe, as opposed to Bais Sheni, where they engaged in internal deficiency. It was Sinas Chinam, which is internal, touches the core of a person, his neshama. Says the Maral, that Avera, in a way, is more severe. And that's why going Nizgala Kitzam. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Toivat Zipornan Shel Rishayim. Although it appears that the people who lived during Bais Rishon were terrible people, Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arois, things which were not done during Bais Sheni, but you meant to know, says Rabbi Yehuda, they still stand higher. Their Madrega was higher. They're closer to Sinai. They're further up in history. Better the tzipornaim, the nails of the earlier generation than the kreisen and the innards of the later generations. Marsha says it's a mushal, like an animal. The nails are inedible, but the innards are edible. The inedible portion of the earlier deiras stand higher than the edible portion of the lower generation, of the later generations. Just the opposite. I maintain that the later generations are regarded higher. Why? Achroinim adifi. They're better. Afagav the ikashibud malchus. Look how difficult life is today under the goyim. Ka'aski b'Torah. They're still involved in Torah. They overcome these great challenges, something which the earlier deiras did not have to do. So yeah, on account of their inherent chashivas, you're right. The later we go down the deiras, we lower the madrega. But as far as the challenges that they have to surmount, and they do it successfully, they actually stand higher than the previous deiras. Amalei Recham responded, no, Bira Techiach. Bira is a reference to the Beis HaMikdash. That's going to prove my point. Shechazal l'Rishayim, v'lo'chazal l'Achrayim. The Beis HaMikdash was restored to the earlier deiras, although there was a churban, it came back, but it never came back to the later deiras. So we see that the earlier ones stand higher. Shalosh Rabbi Eliezer. This question was asked Rabbi Eliezer. Rishayim g'deilim, Achrayim g'deilim. Who stands higher? The earlier ones or the later ones? Amalei, he responded like Rabbi Yehuda, take a look at the Beis Hamikdash, which was returned to the earlier days, but not to the later days. Igid Amri, some say he responded, Amalei, Eidechem Bira. The Bira, the Beis Hamikdash, will be your witnesses. It's going to provide testimony. Look, it's not here today, but it was returned to earlier days. Mechel Summer said a nice pshat. He says the actual Beis Hamikdash, the second time around, was lower in stature than the first Beis Hamikdash. Gemara tells us that it was missing 5 things. It didn't have the same madrega of Ashras HaShechina as we're going to see in the Gemara coming up. So even the Beis Hamikdash itself, the first time around, was higher than the second Beis Hamikdash. Apparently, that door was mochash. Rish Lakish was taking a swim in the Yarden. I have a similar Gemara in Bava Metzia. And he was swimming in the Yarden, and he met Rabbi Yehuda, who was machzir mit tshuva, and turned him into this great Talmud Chacham. So apparently this was his practice. He would exercise, take a swim in the Yarden. Also, Rabbi Bar Chana, Yoav leYoda. Rabbi Bar Chana came along and lent him his hand to help him out of the water. Amalei Rish Lakish responded, Aloha, Lashon of Shvu, I promise, Sanina Lahu, we dislike you. You people from Bavel, we have a dislike towards you. Because you didn't come up from Bavel to Yisrael when you should have. The Chesiv Im Chaymahi, Pasuk says, if Klal Yisrael is like a wall, solid, established, Nivla Alea Tiras Kasa will build on it a silver structure, a high quality structure. Vim Delasi, it's only like a door, Notzir Alea Luach Erez. We're only going to be able to put on it some sort of wooden plank. What does this mean? Imasisim, it's referring to when Yisrael returned from Golus with Ezra. Imasisim atzmachem kechema. If you would have presented yourself like a wall. Valisem kulchem me Ezra. And come up all together in the time of Ezra. And properly re-establish yourself in Eretz Yisrael. Nem shaltem kekesef shein rekev shelit. You would have been compared to silver, which is not affected by rot, by worms. You would have had a high-standing Beis Hamikdash with all the madregas of Shechina. But now, Akshav Shalisim Kedalsis, now that you refuse to come up all together, like doors, like you have one door open, one door closed, it's not a complete mechitza. Shaltam Ke'er now you're compared to a piece of cedar, Sharekev Shelit, which is affected by rekev, by rot, by worm. And indeed, the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni did not have the same madrega as the first Beis Hamikdash because it was not established by all of Yisrael collectively. My eres, what do we mean that's compared to a piece of wood? Amar Ula Sasmagur. Sasmagur is some sort of worm which burrows through the wood. So although outwardly it looks like a full piece of wood, but inside it's hollow. Beis Hamikdash on the outside looked beautiful, looked like a complete Beis Hamikdash, but on the inside, as far as its spiritual qualities, was lacking. My sasmagur, in what way are you comparing it to the sasmagur? Amar Abba Baska. That in the second Beis Hamikdash we didn't have the same madrega of the Shechina. We only had a Baska. When the last Nevi'im passed away, we know Avitz Rav Nosson says that in Ruach HaKodesh we have 10 levels. The highest is Nevuah. So at that point, Nevuah was removed from Klal Yisrael. Nistalku Ruach HaKodesh Yisrael, v'adayinu mishtamshim mebaskoil. But a little bit was left over, a lower madrega of Nevuah, which is called baskoil. The reason why it's called baskoil, it's generated by Hashem's koil. It's like an echo, reverberation of Hashem's koil. It's some sort of low-level revelation that we can still experience today, but by Hashem did not have that same level of nevuah and revelation of Hashem like in Bayis Rishon. In fact, the Ravid says that even nowadays, the beautiful lashon in the Ravid, I think it's Hilchas Lulav, he says, Basko, there was a Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh was experiencing our Beis Medrash. And we find the lashon Seidesh Shem Lireyav brought in the Ravid that a Talmud Chacham, even today, can through Torah, through Kedusha, we can still tap into that concept of Ruach HaKodesh, albeit on a lower level. It says the Gemara, V'shlokish mimishtoy by the Rabbi Bar Chana. We find that Rabbi Bar Chana began a conversation with Rish Lakish. Actually, it was Rish Lakish who initiated the conversation. Right? Rabbi Bar Chana stretched his hand out to help him out, and Rish Lakish began a conversation. Was that his practice? Rish Lakish mimishtoi bahadi Rabbi Barachana? Would Rish Lakish initiate a conversation with Rabbi Barachana? He would be very careful, very selective regarding with whom he would engage in conversation. Because the Gemara will tell us that whoever Rish Lakish spoke to, whoever he initiated a discussion with, was deemed to be fully trustworthy and reliable, and Rish Lakish was very careful to whom he would bestow that, on whom he would bestow that title, and he was very careful with respect to initiating a conversation. So how is it that he began a conversation with Rabbi Barachana? Uma Rabbi Elazar the Mord Ar Yisrael Hava. Since we find that even Rabbi Elazar was the Rav Eretz Yisrael, very chashiv, v'lo yahav mishtoi Rish Lakish v'adei, Rish Lakish would refuse to initiate conversation with him. The man, the mishtoi Rish Lakish v'adei, because whoever Rish Lakish spoke to, b'shok outside, yo v'le iska, v'le sadi, that person was considered to be on such a high madreg. Wow, Rish Lakish spoke to him. He would be trusted to the nth degree. People would give him an iska, v'le sadi. They give him money for an investment without even aid him. You just rely on his word. His word was his honor. Rish Lakish spoke to you, he must be something special. So that was a general practice. Rish Lakish would not just initiate conversation with anybody. Even Rabbi Elazar, he wouldn't speak to. Bahadi Rabbi Barachana Mishtoi. Why is it that he began a discussion with Rabbi Barachana? Omra, Papa, we must change some name here. Shadi Gavri Benai. Let's switch a name. We had Rish Lakish with Rabbi, so we have to switch one of those two. Oy Rish Lakish Hava Uziri. Either it was Rish Lakish speaking to Ziri, and Ziri was known to be a big tzaddik, and did not need a haskama from Rish Lakish. The Gemara elsewhere says that Ziri would check himself to see whether Gehenna was going to have an effect on him. So every 30 days he was going to a hot oven. In fact, one time it happened that there was some slight deficiency and he got slightly charred by the oven. So in any case, Ziri was known to be a big tzaddik. And therefore Rish Lakish would not hesitate to speak to him. So either the story took place with Rish Lakish and Ziri, or it was Rabbi Barachana Rabbi Elazar. So take out Rish Lakish and replace it with Rabbi Elazar. In any case, that was a discussion regarding the fact that Bayis Sheni did not have the same madrega as Bayis Rishon because it was not established collectively by all of Yisrael. Ki Asal came to Rabbi Yechon, Rish Lakish came to Rabbi Yechon, Amalei, Rabbi Yechon responded. Meaning, Rish Lakish put forth his opinion. The reason why Beis Hamikdash Hasheni was deficient was because the reason we mentioned. Amalei, Rabbi Yechon responded, no, time, that's not the reason. Because even if everybody would have came up together during the days of Ezra, if everybody would have established the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, still it would not have had the same madrega. The Shechina would not have rested completely Mikdash Hasheni as it did in Bayis Rishon. That's what it was meant to be. This is a bracha to Yefes that Hashem will grant beauty to Yefes, but dwell in the Yeholim of Shem. Even though Hashem granted the Yoifi to Yefes, allowed them to build the Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, the true Hashras Hashchina only took place Ba'olei Shem, meaning the first Beis Hamikdash, which was built by Shlomo HaMelech, who was the descendant of Shem. Says Rashi up on top, in which way was Yefes involved in building the Beis Hamikdash? Shezochu Parasiyim livnois by Shem. We know that Kirish, the Melech Paras, was the one who was instrumental in initiating the Binyan Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, and he is from Paras. So they were Zeicha to build Beis Hasheni. Still, even though they had that schus, Yafta L'Kim L'Yefes, Hashem granted them that schus. And Shechina Shoyra, Ela B'Mikdash Rishon Sheba Nishloimoi Sheba Mizar Shel Shem. The true Beis Hamikdash, the higher level Beis Hamikdash, needed to be established by Shlomo Melech, who comes Mizar Shel Shem. So Rebbe responded to Rish Lakish, has nothing to do with all of Yisrael, or part of Yisrael present. Rather, has to do with the one who built it. Beis Hamikdash Rishon, built by Shlomo, earned the highest madrega of Asharas Hashchina, as opposed to Beis Hamikdash Hasheni, which was not in the same madrega. Okay, time for a quick chazara. We began with the halacha of demai. Generally, one has to be slightly concerned that the Amoritz, from whom he purchased that tvua, did not take care of the trumas and masas properly. Now the Gemara tells us Yechanan Gadol, after his investigation, turned up the following results: that Truma Gedola was never a problem, even though Ma'aretz took it seriously. And therefore, when a purchase from Ma'aretz does not have to take care of Truma Gedola. Ma'aser Ish and Ma'aser Ani, you have to separate, you don't have to give it to the Levi and the Ani. The only thing you have to really take care of is Trumas Ma'aser to the Kohen and Ma'aser Sheni. There was a kula to the Nachtomim because they earned very little due to the harassment from the government agents, and therefore the Chachamim were only mechayev Trumas Ma'aser, and of course Challah, which is standard, but not Ma'aser Sheni. During Bayis Rishon, there were merely 18 Kohanim Gedolim because they were tzaddikim. During Bayis Sheni, where they would buy off these positions, generally the Kohanim did not even live through the year. There were more than 300 Kohanim throughout the Bayis Sheni, which only was standing for 420 years. Why was Mishkan Shiloh destroyed? Because of the misdeeds of Bnei Eli, things which resembled Gilai Rayis and Bezoyin Kachim. Beis Hamikdash Harishon because of the Gimel Averes Chamuris, Avodah Zarah, Gilai Rayis Shvichas Damim. Although there was some sinas chinam there, but it only applied to the politicians in the Sea Yisrael, but didn't really affect the general population, as opposed to by Sheni, where sinas chinam and consequently lashon hara was prevalent throughout the population, and that brought about the destruction of Bayis Sheni. And Chavetz Chaim writes very, very passionately about Bimasak and this chet of sinas chinam and lashon hara, which is the cause of our gullus. He exhorts the readers of his Sfarim to take it seriously, and that will bring about the Binei Beis Hamikdash.